The iPhone 10. This device recently just turned 4 years old. I cannot believe this phone is already 4 years old and somehow it still manages to feel brand new. I just can't believe how well it has kept up with its more recent iterations like the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 13. This phone still holds its own and still feels very modern and is totally still worth buying. I made a video all about that a while ago about buying the iPhone 10 in 2021. Make sure you check it out if you're considering getting one of these, because this is still a great phone for 99% of the people out there. You can get these things cheap now. Now you can buy a used one for $300-400, you know, getting one that's up in the 256 gigabyte capacity. And so today I'm going to give you a few ways that you can make this phone last for years to come so you can have a great iPhone on a budget. Now, one of the first things you can do to make sure this phone is going to last for another 5 more years or maybe even beyond that is to get your battery replaced. As you can see, mine has a capacity of about 82% left, which isn't too bad considering this phone was my daily use phone for a full 3 years until I got the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I used the 12 Pro Max for a year and now I'm using the 13 Pro Max. But for some reason, this phone just felt so special. It felt so far ahead of its time when it came out. It feels like a collector's item and I just can't let myself part with it. I had no problem selling my 12 Pro Max to get the 13 Pro Max. To me, it was a perfect upgrade. I'll make a video on that soon. But this phone just feels special, and even after all that use and all the things I've put through it, filming hundreds of YouTube videos, using it as a phone, using it for social media, whatever you can think of, taking abuse being in my pocket, outside in the hot 100-degree sun, still 82% battery really isn't bad. And I would argue to say you probably don't need to even replace the battery until it gets down to around maybe 75% capacity. Once you're not able to make it through a full day without charging this thing, that's probably when it's time for an upgrade. Unless you're just an extremely heavy user and you kill your iPhone battery really fast no matter what, then I highly recommend you should get the iPhone 13 Pro Max, but we'll save that for another video. Another thing you might want to do is if you have an Apple store near you, you might want to take it in just for an appointment, just to have them look at it, run some diagnostics to see if there's anything else going on with the phone that might cause you some trouble in the future, because the last thing you want is to have a device that you plan on keeping for a long time that has a looming issue that could cause it to stop working. Now, I really don't see that being the case with this phone, as they were extremely reliable and had minimal issues. I've never had a single issue with this one. I think it's going to be fine, but just in case, you might want to just take it to the store just to see what they have to say about it, in case there might be something going on with it that you could address before it becomes a real problem. Now, the next thing could be a really obvious thing for most people, but for me it's a little bit different, and I would highly recommend most people to use a case. To replace the glass front or the glass back on this phone is extremely expensive. I think it's like over $500 doing it with Apple. So you really don't want to get into a situation where you might have to replace that. You might also want to get some insurance on the device. There are some third-party cell phone insurance companies that you can get insurance on an older device like this. So you might want to look into that. But also, at the end of the day, just be careful with it. Try not to drop it. Don't abuse it, because if you want it to last 5 more years, you really need to take care of it. And something like a cracked screen obviously is replaceable, but if you drop the phone hard enough where it can crack the screen, then it could damage some of the internal components as well, which could be an extremely costly repair, which at that point, you're probably going to be looking at just buying a new iPhone instead. It just won't make any sense to fix something like this. One other thing you want to do, which might sound a little bit obvious to a lot of people, but it's really necessary to keep the phone up in tip-top shape and running as healthy as possible, and that is to keep your iOS updated to the latest version of iOS every time a new update comes out. This helps keep your phone secure, it keeps your phone running as smooth as possible, and this phone will probably be supported with iOS updates for at least the next 2 or 3 years. Typically it's like 6 or 7 years for most iPhones, and since this one just turned 7, it probably has a few more years left in the tank, and if you're planning on using it for 5 more years, that's only 2 years you'll have to go without getting iOS updates. But let's be realistic, guys, probably by then you'll be interested in getting a newer device. But I'm talking to you out there just in case you are one of the diehards that's planning on using this phone for almost a decade. If you enjoyed this video, check out my iPhone 10 review video if it's still worth buying in 2021 and coming up on 2022. The same advice applies. The video's right over there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.